the first person to tell Claire Bennett she did not belong in the lobby, smiled while doing it. That was what she remembered later. Not the cameras, not the 80-foot marble atrium glowing beneath chandeliers worth more than her apartment building. Not the executives seated beneath the enormous gold letters announcing the North American Hospitality Leadership Conference. She remembered the smile. Richard Vale wore it as he approached her across the lobby of the Bellamont Grand, accompanied by 2 hotel managers and a security supervisor, whose expression suggested he already regretted whatever he had been ordered to do. Claire stood beside a registration table, holding a leather portfolio against the front of her navy dress. She was 31, soft through the hips and stomach, with dark curls pinned loosely behind one ear and the kind of face that looked approachable until someone insulted her students. Then something changed in her eyes. Vale stopped 3 feet away. "Miss Bennett." Claire recognized him immediately. "Regional President, Bellamont Hospitality Group, keynote speaker tomorrow morning. I'm Claire." "I know." His eyes traveled down her body so briefly that someone less accustomed to being judged might have missed it. Claire did not. Neither did the young receptionist standing behind the registration desk. Vale lowered his voice. "There appears to have been some misunderstanding." Claire glanced at the badge hanging around her neck. "Claire Bennett, guest instructor. I'm scheduled for the workforce development panel at 2. "Yes. Then what's misunderstood?" Vale's smile tightened. Around them, conference guests drifted past carrying designer luggage and branded folders. A local television crew was filming near the elevators. The Bellamont had prepared for visibility. Unfortunately for Richard Vale, visibility worked in both directions. He cleared his throat. The lobby experience is extremely controlled during events of this level. Claire waited. Vale continued. "We have investors arriving, international media, brand partners." Still, she waited. One of the managers beside him looked at the floor. Vale seemed annoyed by Claire's refusal to help him say what he wanted to say. Finally, he did. "Our guest-facing instructors are generally selected to reflect the aspirational positioning of the Bellamont brand." Claire's fingers tightened once around her portfolio. "Aspirational." Vale softened his tone as though speaking to a difficult customer. "This isn't personal." That almost made her laugh. "What exactly would you like me to do, Mr. Vale?" "I think it would be preferable if your session were moved to the lower conference level. My panel is in the lobby ballroom. We've reassigned it." "When?" "This morning." "No one told me." "I'm telling you now." Claire looked toward the television crew. The cameraman had shifted. He was filming them. Vale noticed too. His smile disappeared. Then he said the sentence that would follow him for years. "The concern is simply that you may not be the appropriate physical fit for the Bellamont lobby." Silence seemed to gather around them. Claire felt heat rising beneath her collarbone. She had heard versions of it before. Too full-bodied for luxury retail. Too warm for executive training. Too ordinary for premium branding. Too visible in a body the industry preferred to hide behind service doors. The younger Claire might have fought him. This Claire had spent 6 years teaching people who had been fired, abandoned, displaced, divorced, disabled, widowed, bankrupted, or told they were too old to start over. She had learned dignity could be louder than anger, so she nodded. "All right." Vale blinked. "All right? I'll leave the lobby." The security supervisor visibly relaxed. Claire removed her conference badge. She placed it on the registration table. Vale looked unsettled. Perhaps he had expected outrage. Perhaps outrage would have made her easier to dismiss. Instead, Claire turned toward the revolving doors. That was when she noticed the older bellman. He was standing near the luggage desk. Gray hair, dark uniform, name tag reading Samir. His face was carefully blank, but his eyes met Claire's, and in them she saw something deeper than embarrassment. Fear. Then the revolving doors carried her into the Chicago afternoon. 3 minutes later, the city stopped moving. At first, Claire thought the chanting was part of the conference protest taking place several blocks away. Then car horns erupted along Michigan Avenue. People began pouring from buses. A woman in a transit jacket shouted into her phone. Someone yelled that the drivers had walked out. Within 10 minutes, every major transportation route surrounding downtown had been disrupted by a sudden strike. Within 20, the Bellamont's elegant entrance had become a wall of confusion. Taxi availability vanished. Rideshare prices tripled. Airport shuttles stopped. Hundreds of conference attendees who had expected smooth transfers suddenly discovered that luxury could become helpless very quickly. Claire had reached the corner when she heard a child crying. She turned. A woman was standing beside 3 suitcases beneath the hotel awning, speaking frantic Spanish into a phone while a little boy clung to her coat. Claire walked back. "Do you need help?" The woman looked at her helplessly. "My husband is at the airport. My phone." She showed Claire the dead screen. Claire pulled a portable charger from her bag. "Here." The woman almost sagged with relief. That was the first person. The second was an elderly conference guest whose wheelchair-accessible shuttle had been cancelled. The third was a family from Seattle who had no idea which train lines were still running. Then an Australian couple. Then a pregnant woman. Then 2 graduate students. Then 20 people. Claire moved beneath the awning as rain began stippling the pavement. She borrowed a notepad from the doorman. "Anyone going toward O'Hare? Stand near this pillar. Midway, over there. Union Station. Stay with me. If you're local and have a car, please don't leave yet." The Bellamont managers watched through the glass. No one came outside. Claire called a former student who now worked for a church transportation program, then a community center, then an independent bus company. She organized shared rides, translated directions, found bottled water, calmed a frightened child by turning the hotel map into a treasure hunt. Every few minutes, someone asked, "Are you with the Bellamont?" Claire kept answering the same way. No. Soon nobody cared. 30 stories above them, a man stood behind floor-to-ceiling glass, with one hand in the pocket of a black suit. Matteo DeLuca had been watching for 17 minutes. He had attended executions with less concentration. Behind him, Lorenzo Russo closed a folder. "The transportation shutdown has nothing to do with us." Matteo did not turn. "I know. The Morettis?" "No." "Then why are we still discussing it?" "We're not." Lorenzo looked toward the windows. Below them, a crowd had formed beneath black umbrellas. At its center stood Claire Bennett. "Who is she?" Matteo asked. Lorenzo followed his gaze. "The woman outside?" "Yes." "I don't know." "Find out." Lorenzo's eyebrows lifted. Matteo DeLuca rarely asked questions twice. People normally appeared before him already researched. "What exactly am I finding out?" Matteo watched Claire hand her umbrella to an elderly woman and step into the rain herself. "Everything." Lorenzo stared at him. Matteo finally turned. "And find out why Richard Vale had security remove her." That changed Lorenzo's expression. "You saw that?" "I saw enough." Matteo walked toward the penthouse bar. The room had been secured that morning because Matteo was not really attending the hospitality conference. Not as a guest. Not even as an investor. He was there because 3 months earlier, one of his accountants had noticed money moving through Bellamont construction subsidiaries connected to Carlo Moretti. Carlo controlled trafficking routes Matteo despised, politicians Matteo distrusted, and enough union contracts to make him dangerous. Bellamont was supposed to be a clean corporate shell, but somebody inside was feeding Moretti millions. Matteo had come to discover who. He had not expected to become interested in a woman standing in the rain. Interest irritated him. He poured mineral water into a glass. Lorenzo's phone vibrated. "Claire Bennett," he read, 31, hospitality trainer, independent consultant, runs workforce classes through a nonprofit called Second Start. Matteo DeLuca. She teaches unemployed adults? Yes. Income? Modest. Family? Mother outside Milwaukee. Father deceased. No husband. No children. Matteo gave him a look. Lorenzo shrugged. "You said everything." Down on the pavement, Claire raised both hands. "Milwaukee Group, your bus is here." The stranded travelers cheered. Matteo went still. They were actually following her. People who had paid hundreds of dollars a night to stay at the Bellamont were ignoring the hotel's management and taking instructions from the woman those same executives had declared unsuitable for their lobby. A faint expression touched Matteo's face. Not a smile. Something rarer. Respect. Then his gaze shifted to Richard Vale, visible behind the glass doors. Vale was watching Claire too, but there was no respect in his face. Only anger. Matteo set down his glass. Vale is going to retaliate. Lorenzo looked surprised. For this, men like him can tolerate failure. Matteo adjusted his cuff. They cannot tolerate comparison. Outside, Claire looked toward the hotel doors. For one strange second, she had the sensation someone else was watching her. Not Vale. Higher. She looked up. 30 floors of reflective glass stared back. Nothing. Then a black SUV pulled away from the curb. And Claire forgot about it for almost 2 days. Second Start occupied the second floor above a laundromat in Albany Park. The radiator knocked. The carpet had been replaced in sections, which meant the floor appeared to have 4 different opinions about the color gray. Claire loved it. 22 adults sat before her, on folding chairs Monday morning. Some had been laid off. Some had recently immigrated. One man had spent 15 years in prison. A woman named Lourdes had not worked outside the home since her husband died. Claire wrote 3 words across the whiteboard. Service is power. A man in the back raised his hand. Power? Yes. Hotels don't think that. Some don't. A few people laughed. The Bellamont incident had gone viral. Someone had filmed Vale removing Claire. Someone else had filmed Claire helping stranded guests. By Sunday night, the clips had been combined. By Monday morning, 7 million people had seen them. Claire hated every second of it. She pointed at the board. Forget Bellamont. If you work with people, you have power over how they remember the worst 10 minutes of their day. Lourdes tilted her head. That is service? That's leadership. The door opened. Claire stopped speaking. A man entered wearing a charcoal overcoat over a black suit. He was too well dressed for Second Start, too controlled for unemployment services, too physically still. He was tall, broad through the shoulders, dark-haired, perhaps late 30s. His face possessed the kind of hard symmetry that expensive photographers tried to manufacture in advertisements. This was not the strange part. The strange part was the room. 22 people had been shifting, coughing, tapping pencils. Every movement stopped. The man seemed accustomed to that effect. Claire was not. Can I help you? His eyes settled on her. Dark, unhurried. Possibly. She waited. He looked at the whiteboard. Service is power. Yes. Is that what you believe? It would be unusual to write things I don't believe while teaching. A few students smiled. Something flickered in his eyes. Matteo DeLuca. Claire knew the name. Not the real name. The public one. DeLuca Capital. Real estate. Shipping. Private equity. A man whose financial profile had appeared in business magazines beside phrases like private billionaire and elusive investor. Claire crossed her arms. You're at the wrong workshop. Am I? Unless you're between jobs. Another suppressed laugh. Matteo studied her. Nobody spoke to him this way. Not because he demanded politeness. Because survival instincts normally handled the issue. Claire apparently possessed defective survival instincts. I came regarding the Bellamont. The room quieted again. Claire's expression cooled. If they sent you to apologize, tell them to spend the money fixing how they treat people. They didn't send me. Then why are you here? Matteo looked around the room. Because yesterday 7 million people discovered that a hotel with 1,200 employees required a woman it had removed from the property to solve its guest crisis. Claire did not react. I thought that was interesting. You came across Chicago because something was interesting? Yes. That answer unsettled her more than flirtation would have. What do you want? To watch? No. Matteo blinked once. Claire gestured toward the empty chair near the door. You can participate. You cannot watch. His gaze stayed on her. Explain the difference. My students aren't exhibits. Silence. Matteo removed his overcoat. Lorenzo, standing outside the door, nearly choked. Matteo took the folding chair. Claire handed him a worksheet. Welcome to class, Mr. DeLuca. For the next 80 minutes, one of the most feared men in Chicago participated in customer service role play with a former forklift operator named Dennis. Claire had no idea. Matteo found the experience unexpectedly educational. Not the lesson. Here, she remembered every student's name. She never interrupted someone struggling to speak English. She corrected without humiliating. When Dennis froze during an exercise, Claire did not rescue him. She gave him enough silence to rescue himself. Matteo understood command. He had controlled men with fear since he was 23. Claire controlled a room through trust. That interested him more than he wanted it to. After class, she found him looking at the whiteboard. So? So what? Did the billionaire learn anything? His eyes moved to hers. People perform better when they believe failure will not be used against them. Claire leaned against the desk. That sounds obvious. It isn't. Something in the way he said it made her look more closely. For the first time, she noticed the scar near his right hand. Thin. Old. Not businesslike. You know Richard Vale? She asked. Yes. Does he work for you? No. Do you own the Bellamont? Part of the debt. Claire frowned. That sounds deliberately complicated. It is. Why? Complicated ownership makes useful people invisible. A warning moved beneath his words. Claire straightened. What does that mean? Matteo studied her for several seconds. Have any Bellamont employees contacted you? Her face changed. He noticed. Yes. Who? I'm not telling you. Claire. It was the first time he used her first name. Too familiar. Too quiet. Her pulse reacted anyway. Don't do that. Do what? Say my name like you've already decided I'm going to listen. For the first time in years, Matteo almost smiled. Then the classroom door opened. Samir stepped inside, the older Bellamont bellman from the lobby. Claire immediately moved toward him. Samir. He looked frightened. Matteo's posture changed. Claire noticed. The entire man seemed to become sharper, without moving. Samir held out an envelope. My daughter told me I should not come. What happened? They saw the video. Claire lowered her voice. Who? Mr. Vale. Samir glanced at Matteo. Fear flashed across his face. He knew exactly who Matteo DeLuca was. Matteo saw the recognition. Claire did not. Samir whispered. They are taking money from workers. Claire went still. What money? Overtime. Tips. Service charges. His hands began shaking. They tell some workers if we complain, immigration will come. Even workers who have papers. People are scared. Claire's anger surfaced instantly. Do you have proof? Samir held out the envelope. Some. Matteo stepped closer. Samir flinched. Claire moved subtly between them. Matteo noticed that too. She was protecting Samir from him. Interesting. Who is he? Claire asked. Samir looked at her. You do not know? No. Matteo answered before Samir could. An investor. Samir stared at him. Matteo's eyes gave the older man a silent order. Say nothing. Samir obeyed. Claire took the envelope. Inside were photocopied schedules, payroll summaries, handwritten hours, and internal notices threatening termination for discussing wages. Her face hardened. This is illegal. Yes. Why bring it to me? Samir swallowed. Because when they made you leave, you did not make anyone smaller. Claire looked down. It struck her harder than the insult had. Matteo watched her reaction. Something uncomfortable tightened behind his ribs. Samir continued. People think maybe you listen. Claire closed the envelope. I do. Matteo looked through the classroom windows toward the street. A black sedan had been parked across the road for 6 minutes. Engine running. 2 men inside. Neither belonged to him. Claire. She looked up. We need to leave. Her eyebrows drew together. Why? The sedan doors opened. Matteo crossed the room. Now. 2 men stepped onto the sidewalk. One reached beneath his jacket. Claire saw Matteo's expression change. Nothing dramatic. No panic. No hesitation. Just cold recognition. He grabbed her wrist. Backstairs. Samir whispered, Oh God. Matteo opened the classroom door. Lorenzo was already there. Moretti. Matteo nodded once. Claire stared between them. Who is Moretti? Nobody answered. A window shattered downstairs. Screaming erupted from the laundromat. Matteo pulled Claire behind him. The violence came quickly. Lorenzo drew a weapon. Claire froze. Her eyes snapped to Matteo. He was no longer an investor. No longer a billionaire attending workshops. He became something else. A man who understood danger before it arrived. A man other dangerous men recognized. Take Samir through the kitchen exit. Matteo told Lorenzo. What about you? I have her. Claire yanked her arm away. You do not have me. A gunshot cracked from below. Matteo turned his head toward her. Today, I do. He moved her toward the rear stairwell. She hated that she followed. She hated more that she trusted him. They descended through a narrow concrete stairwell as shouting exploded above. Claire's breath came fast. Who are you? Matteo kept moving. Not here. You brought armed men to my classroom. They weren't mine. You have armed men. Yes. That is not reassuring. They reached the alley. A black SUV swept backward toward them. The passenger door opened. Claire stopped. No. Matteo faced her. Get in. No. Claire, I am not getting inside a black SUV with an armed stranger. You've known me almost 2 hours. She stared at him. Do you hear yourself? Another shot echoed. Matteo's jaw tightened. Then tires screamed at the mouth of the alley. The sedan appeared. Matteo moved before Claire understood what he had seen. He shoved her behind a brick column. Gunfire cracked against metal. Glass exploded. Claire covered her head. Matteo stood in front of her, one arm braced beside her face, body shielding hers completely. For one suspended second, their eyes met. He was inches away. Rain darkened his hair. His expression contained no fear, only fury. Not because someone was shooting at him, because they had endangered her. He drew a pistol from beneath his jacket. Claire stared. Matteo looked toward the alley entrance. 2 controlled shots. A tire burst. The sedan swerved into a dumpster. His driver dragged open the SUV door. Matteo turned back to Claire. Now. This time she got in. The penthouse safe floor overlooking the Chicago River contained museum-quality art, biometric locks, bullet-resistant glass, and absolutely nothing that suggested a human being lived there. Claire stood in the center of it with a borrowed blanket around her shoulders. Matteo poured water. She stared at the pistol he had placed on the marble counter. Are you in organized crime? He handed her the glass. Yes. She had expected denial. The truth frightened her more. Claire did not take the water. What does that mean? You know what it means. No. I know what movies mean. Matteo set the glass down. My family controls shipping routes, private security, construction contracts, entertainment properties, and several businesses whose legality depends on which prosecutor is explaining them. Claire stared. And the guns? Real. The people who attacked us. Moretti. Another mafia family. Yes. She laughed once, without humor. I taught you how to handle an angry hotel guest this morning. I found it useful. This isn't funny. I'm not laughing. She pressed 2 fingers against her forehead. Samir and Lorenzo were safe on another floor. Claire knew that much. It was nearly midnight. Rain streaked the glass. What does this have to do with Bellamont? Matteo walked toward the windows. Carlo Moretti is laundering money through hotel redevelopment contracts. And Vale? I came to determine that. You already suspected him. Yes. And you used me. The accusation landed cleanly. Matteo turned. I didn't know Samir would come to you, but you knew something was happening. Yes. You came to my class because you thought employees might contact me. Initially. Claire caught the word. Initially? His gaze remained on hers. That stopped being the reason. She looked away first. Dangerous mistake. Her body had begun noticing him in moments when her mind was screaming that it should not. The controlled voice. The stillness. The way he had covered her with his own body in the alley. Protection did not make him good. Claire knew that. But the body did not always consult morality before reacting to safety. She wrapped the blanket tighter. What happens now? Samir gives us everything he knows. No. Matteo's expression cooled. No? You do not interrogate him. I wasn't planning to. You intimidate people by standing still. That is not entirely under my control. Despite herself, Claire almost smiled. She stopped it. He talks to me. Matteo stepped closer. This is not a customer service dispute. No. It involves frightened workers who already think powerful men can ruin their lives. And if Vale has Moretti protection, those workers are in actual danger. Which is exactly why you don't terrify them. Matteo's eyes darkened. You believe kindness will protect them? I believe fear is what Vale is already using. His jaw shifted. Claire stepped closer too. If we become another thing they're afraid of, we've already lost. Nobody spoke to Matteo DeLuca like that. Nobody challenged his methods in his own home. He should have ended the conversation. Instead, he was looking at her mouth. Claire realized it. The room changed. Neither moved. Rain whispered against the glass. Matteo lifted one hand. Almost. His fingers stopped several inches from the curl beside her cheek. He lowered them. Guest room is down the hall. Claire's breath caught at the restraint. I'm not staying. You are. No. Moretti gunmen attacked you because they believe you have evidence. They attacked Samir. They shot through the wall covering your body. That is a very specific distinction. It matters to me. The words came too quickly. Matteo seemed to regret them instantly. Claire's heart beat harder. Why? He looked away. Sleep. That wasn't an answer. No. Matteo. He turned. The use of his name struck him visibly. Claire saw it. His voice lowered. If I answer you tonight, you will not believe me. Tre. He held her gaze. I noticed you because an entire hotel failed and you didn't. Silence. I kept watching because people trust you before they understand why. He moved one step closer. And I came to your classroom because I wanted to know whether that quality was real. Claire swallowed. Was it? Yes. The answer was immediate. Matteo looked at her for another second. That is why you need to stay away from me. Then he walked out. Claire stood alone beneath the rain-dark windows. For the first time that night, the danger frightening her most had nothing to do with guns. She did not stay away. For 3 weeks, neither of them managed it. The investigation grew quietly. Claire became the bridge. Bellamont workers who would never speak to Matteo began speaking to her. Housekeepers, dishwashers, banque serveurs, laundry workers, night custodians. Some were immigrants. Some were elderly. Some had English as a second or third language. Almost all had been threatened. The pattern was brutal. Overtime disappeared. Service charges vanished. Employees were forced to work off-clock. Vale's management team fabricated disciplinary reports against anyone who complained. Worse, several workers had been coerced into signing false payroll acknowledgements connected to shell companies moving millions through renovation contracts. Claire listened. Matteo built the case. And somewhere between testimonies and danger, they built something else. It happened in fragments. At 1 a.m. over cold coffee when Claire discovered Matteo knew how everyone in the room took theirs. In a hotel service tunnel when he placed his hand at the small of her back as footsteps passed nearby, then immediately removed it. At second start, when he arrived with 12 new laptops after learning 3 students had been sharing one broken computer. Claire confronted him in the hallway. You can't buy your way into being helpful. I wasn't aware laptops constituted corruption. You didn't put your name on them. No. Why? Would you have accepted them? No. Then I am learning. She stared. He almost smiled. Another night, Claire took Matteo to a neighborhood festival where several of her former students worked food stands. He looked absurdly expensive beneath strings of paper lanterns. Children ran around him without realizing adults normally cross streets to avoid men like Matteo DeLuca. Claire bought him a paper plate of pierogi. He looked at it. What? She asked. I don't eat food from temporary tents. You run an international crime organization, and street food is where you draw the line. He took one bite. Claire watched him. Well? He looked toward the stand. Who made these? Mrs. Kowalski. Can she be retained? Claire laughed. It surprised him. Not because he had never heard her laugh, because he had never realized how badly he wanted to be responsible for it. Later, music began near the church steps. Claire stood beneath the lanterns watching elderly couples dance. Matteo joined her. You like this? Yes. Why? Because people are nice when nobody important is watching. Matteo looked at her. You really believe that? Usually. I don't. I know. His gaze shifted over the crowd. You think I'm cynical. I think you've spent too long around people who gain something from disappointing you. That struck deeper than she knew. He looked back at her. Claire seemed to realize she had crossed into something personal. Sorry. Don't be. For a moment, neither spoke. Music drifted between them. Matteo's hand moved slightly. Claire saw it. He almost reached for hers. Then a man approached her from behind. Claire? She turned. Evan. Matteo immediately disliked him. Evan Brooks was not threatening. This somehow made him worse. Tall, attractive, smiling, former colleague. He hugged Claire. Matteo's face became motionless. Still saving the service industry? Evan asked. Trying. Claire glanced at Matteo. This is Matteo. Evan extended his hand. Evan Ross. Matteo looked at the hand, as if considering international protocol. Claire gave him a warning glance. He shook it. Evan smiled at Claire. We should catch up. Dinner? Matteo answered. She's busy. Claire turned slowly. I'm capable of knowing my schedule. I'm aware. Evan looked between them. Something delighted him. Oh, Claire sighed. There is no O. Matteo's gaze stayed on Evan. There is absolutely an O. Claire stared at him. You are unbelievable. Evan wisely left. Claire folded her arms. What was that? What? You. I disliked him. You spoke to him for 11 seconds. 10 too many. She tried not to smile. Failed. Matteo watched the smile appear. His expression softened for less than a second. Then, a vehicle door slammed across the street. His entire body changed. He reached for Claire. An explosion ripped through the food stand behind them. The blast threw people to the pavement. Glass burst from a storefront. Claire hit the ground beneath Matteo. Smoke. Screaming. Heat. He covered her with his body. Again. Claire's ears rang. Matteo. I'm here. People. My men are moving. She tried to rise. He held her down. Stay. There are children. Claire. Get off me. She shoved at him. He swore and moved enough for her to crawl toward a crying little girl. Matteo followed. Of course he followed. The attack had not been large enough to kill indiscriminately. It had been targeted. A message. The food stand belonged to a Bellamont dishwasher, who had spoken to Claire 2 nights earlier. Matteo understood before anyone else. Moretti knew. The case was compromised, and Claire had become the center of it. After the bombing, Matteo changed, not toward Claire. Around her, 3 security vehicles appeared outside Second Start. Men in dark coats occupied the corner cafe. Her apartment building acquired cameras without asking permission. Claire discovered one evening that Matteo had quietly purchased the building's unpaid mortgage through a holding company. She marched into his penthouse furious. You bought my building? I bought the debt. That is, buying my building with extra words. The landlord was financially vulnerable. So Moretti could have purchased the property and controlled access to you. You cannot buy everything that might become dangerous. Matteo looked up from the file in his hand. Watch me. Claire stared. That isn't romantic. I wasn't attempting romance. Good. They stood 20 feet apart. Neither believed themselves. Claire pointed toward the windows. You put men outside my classroom. Yes. My grocery store. Yes. Mrs. Alvarez thought Lorenzo was stalking her. He apologized. You have lost perspective. Matteo set the file down. My perspective improved considerably after an explosive device went off 12 feet from you. You don't get to control my life because you're afraid. His eyes sharpened. I am not afraid. Claire stepped closer. Yes, you are. Silence. The accusation would have been laughable from anyone else. Matteo DeLuca had been shot twice. Kidnapped once. He had buried a brother. He had stared into the faces of men planning to kill him and asked if they wanted coffee first. Fear was something other people experienced. Claire walked closer. You're terrified. His jaw locked. Be careful. No. Claire. You can threaten everyone else with that voice? She stopped directly before him. Not me. The air seemed to thin. His eyes lowered to her face. Do you understand what could happen if Moretti takes you? Yes. No, you don't. Then tell me. Matteo turned away. Claire grabbed his wrist. It was the first time she touched him in anger. He froze. Her fingers rested against the scar near his hand. His pulse moved beneath them. You keep trying to turn fear into control, she whispered. Tell me the truth instead. Matteo looked down at her hand, then at her. Something inside him cracked open. If they take you, he said quietly, I will burn every structure Moretti owns until I find you. Claire's breath stopped. He stepped toward her, and when I find the person who touched you, I will make his death something men remember. The words should have terrified her. They did. But beneath the violence was something worse. Fine. Matteo's voice dropped. I know exactly what that makes me. Claire whispered. Do you? Yes. He lifted her hand from his wrist, but did not release it. A man you should not trust. She stared at their joined hands. I trust you with my life. His face changed. Claire continued. I don't know if I trust you with my freedom. He let go instantly. The loss of contact hurt more than either expected. Matteo stepped back. You're right. Claire looked at him. About what? The security changes. She blinked. I'm right? Yes. You said that unusually quickly. I dislike the sensation too. A laugh escaped her. Matteo looked away, but the corner of his mouth moved. That was the first argument Claire won. It was also the moment Matteo realized there was no longer any denial available to him. He loved her. He hated the word. It was insufficient. Love sounded gentle. This was not. This was needing to know whether she had eaten, knowing which stair at second start creaked beneath her left foot, recognizing the exact difference between her irritated silence and her frightened silence. This was standing in rooms full of powerful people and noticing only whether Claire looked tired. It was obsession stripped of fantasy. Emotionally humiliating. Completely irreversible. He told nobody, especially her. Richard Vale made his move 4 days later. He invited Claire to a televised public forum at the Bellamont. The company called it a workforce accountability session. Claire called it panic. Matteo called it a trap. You are not going. Claire looked across his dining table. We had this conversation. This one is different. Because Vale knows we have payroll records. Then he's vulnerable. He is dangerous when vulnerable. So are you. That is precisely how I know. Claire folded the invitation. Workers are going to testify. They can testify elsewhere. They're scared. They should be. She frowned. Matteo leaned forward. Claire, Vale is connected to Moretti. The bombing confirmed it, which is why he wants everyone afraid enough to stay home. Yes. And you want me to stay home? Yes. She stared at him. He realized the logical problem. That is different. How? Because I care whether you survive. The room went still. Matteo seemed to hear himself only after the words existed. Claire's expression softened. Matteo. He stood. No. You just. I know. You care? I said no. She almost laughed. His glare stopped her. Almost. He walked toward the windows. Claire followed. This is your version of emotional honesty? It was accidental. That sounds exhausting. It is. She stopped beside him. Chicago glittered below. Come with me. To the hearing? Yes. I intended to. As Matteo DeLuca. His expression changed. Claire turned toward him fully. No corporate alias. No investor language. No pretending you're just some man who happens to have armed employees. His gaze hardened. You understand what revealing my position publicly does? Yes. No, you don't. Probably not. She rested her hand against his chest. Matteo stopped breathing. But Samir is revealing everything. Her voice softened. Lords is speaking. 3 housekeepers are speaking. A dishwasher whose family is terrified is speaking. She looked up at him. Everyone keeps asking the people with the least power to be brave. Matteo's eyes lowered to her hand. And you want me to be brave? I want you to stop hiding the part of yourself you think makes you impossible to stand beside. The words hit him harder than gunfire ever had. Claire began withdrawing her hand. Matteo caught it. Not hard. Just enough. His thumb pressed once against her knuckles. Do you know what standing beside me costs? No. People will judge you. They already do. They will fear you. Some already do. They will say you were manipulated. Claire smiled faintly. Anyone who's met me will know better. His gaze fell to her mouth. For weeks, every near moment had stopped here. An interrupted breath. A hand withdrawing. A door opening. Danger calling. This time nothing interrupted them. Matteo lifted one hand. His fingers touched her cheek. Slowly, carefully, almost reverently. Claire closed her eyes for 1 second. When she opened them, his control was visibly fraying. Tell me to stop, he whispered. She did not. Matteo kissed her. Not violently. That surprised her. His kiss was restrained at first, like a man standing behind a locked door. Claire's fingers tightened against his jacket. The lock broke. His other hand settled at her waist. He drew her closer. The kiss deepened. Years of control turned dangerous beneath tenderness. Claire felt his restraint, even while he held her. That made it more intimate. He wanted more. He took only what she gave. When they separated, their foreheads remained close. Matteo's eyes stayed shut for half a breath. Then he whispered, "This was a mistake." Claire opened her eyes. "Wow." He looked at her. "You misunderstand." "I understand the sentence." The mistake was waiting. Claire stared. Matteo kissed her again. Once. Shorter. Possessive. Then stepped back before either of them forgot the hearing entirely. "Tomorrow," he said, voice rougher than usual, "we end Vale." The Bellamont lobby looked exactly as it had the day Claire was removed. Same chandeliers. Same marble. Same polished reception desk. Everything expensive. Everything controlled. Only, the people had changed. More than 600 workers, journalists, conference guests, labor advocates, neighborhood residents, and hotel employees filled the lobby. Richard Vale stood on a temporary stage beneath television lights. He looked perfect. Claire knew immediately he was desperate. Desperate men often polished themselves most carefully. She entered through the revolving doors. The crowd noticed. Whispers spread. Claire wore a dark emerald dress beneath a wool coat. Her curls fell naturally around her shoulders. No attempt to shrink herself. No attempt to become aspirational. Samir walked beside her. Then lords. Then 9 Bellamont workers. Vale watched them approach. His smile faltered. Claire removed her coat. A reporter called, "Miss Bennett, are you filing suit against the hotel?" "No." "Why not?" "Because this isn't only about me." The crowd shifted. Then the lobby changed again. 3 black SUVs stopped outside. Men in dark suits entered first. No visible weapons. They did not need them. People moved instinctively. Matteo entered last. Silence rolled across the Bellamont. Vale's face emptied. Claire watched recognition move through the executives. Not recognition of DeLuca capital. Something deeper. Something frightened. Matteo walked directly toward Claire. Every camera followed him. He stopped beside her. Not in front. Beside. Claire felt the significance. Vale descended from the stage. "Mr. DeLuca." Matteo looked at him. "Richard, I wasn't aware you intended to attend. I wasn't aware you intended to steal wages from 400 employees." The lobby erupted. Vale went pale. "Excuse me?" Matteo gestured. Lorenzo handed a folder to a federal labor investigator standing near the press area. Vale stared. "What is this?" "Payroll records." Matteo's voice remained calm. "Shell. Company transfers. Coerced signatures. Immigration threats. Construction invoices. Moretti-controlled vendor accounts." Vale's eyes flashed. Claire saw it. Not fear. Calculation. He looked toward someone near the service corridor. Matteo saw that too. His expression changed. "Claire." Too late. The fire alarm exploded overhead. People screamed. Sprinklers activated. A side entrance burst open. 2 armed men rushed through the service corridor. Chaos swallowed the lobby. Matteo grabbed Claire. Gunfire shattered the chandelier above the stage. Crystal rained down. Bodyguards moved. Crowds dropped behind marble counters. Claire lost sight of Samir. "Samir. Lorenzo has him." Matteo dragged her behind a stone column. Another shot struck the wall. Vale ran toward the elevators. One of Moretti's men fired toward Matteo. Matteo pushed Claire down and returned fire. The shooter fell behind a luggage cart. Claire's ears rang. "Matteo, I'm here." There were too many civilians. Matteo knew it. Moretti knew it. That was why they had chosen the lobby. Vale reached the private elevator. Claire saw him. "He's getting away." Matteo looked. Then something changed in his eyes. For the first time, Claire saw the Mafia Boss everyone feared. Cold. Absolute. Terrible. "Stay with Lorenzo." "No." "Claire, if you leave me here, I follow you." He stared at her. She meant it. "Fine." "That worked?" "No." He grabbed her hand. They moved through a service corridor while his men secured the lobby. Vale had taken the elevator toward the penthouse level. Matteo and Claire used the stairs. 27 floors. By 20, Claire was breathing fire. "You own helicopters," she gasped. "This seemed faster." "You were wrong." He almost laughed. A gunshot hit the stairwell door above them. Matteo shoved Claire against the concrete wall. He covered her again. Her chest rose against his. "Still think this is faster?" she whispered. His eyes flashed. Not the time. Definitely the time. He touched her cheek once, then opened the door. The penthouse corridor was dark. Emergency lighting glowed red along the floor. Vale stood at the far end. He held a pistol. Beside him was Carlo Moretti, older than Matteo, silver-haired, elegant, smiling. Claire understood instantly. This was not business anymore. This was history. Moretti looked at her. So, this is the woman. Matteo stepped in front of Claire. Moretti smiled wider. Oh, Matteo. His voice was almost affectionate. You always were easier to kill once you cared about something. Matteo's face became blank. Claire felt his hand move behind him, protecting her. Moretti continued. Your brother made the same mistake. Matteo froze. Claire looked at him. Brother. Something enormous had just entered the room. Moretti saw it. Yes, she doesn't know. Matteo said nothing. Moretti laughed softly. Tell her, Claire whispered. Matteo? Vale looked increasingly nervous. Police sirens rose outside. Moretti's smile faded. His brother tried to leave the business. Claire's chest tightened. Antonio wanted a normal life. Wife, child, all that lovely ordinary nonsense. Matteo's voice was dangerously quiet. Stop. So I took it from him. Claire stared at Matteo. She understood suddenly. The control, the terror disguised as possession, the belief that loving someone created a target. Moretti raised his gun. History does enjoy repetition. Everything happened at once. Vale panicked. He lunged toward the elevator. Moretti turned. Matteo fired. Vale screamed and fell. Moretti fired toward Claire. Matteo moved in front of her. The bullet struck him high in the shoulder. Claire screamed his name. Matteo staggered, then shot Moretti twice. The older man fell. Silence. Emergency lights pulsed red. Claire caught Matteo before he reached the floor. Blood spread beneath his jacket. Matteo, I'm fine. You have been shot. I've had worse. You are unbelievably irritating. She pressed both hands against the wound. His face tightened. Police pounded through the stairwell doors below. Claire's eyes filled. Matteo saw the tears. Fear crossed his face more clearly than pain. Don't what? Look at me like that. Like what? Like I matter. Claire laughed through tears. You idiot. His breathing became shallow. Claire, I'm here. I should have told you. Told me what? His eyes held hers. Everything disappeared from his face except truth. I love you. Claire stopped breathing. Matteo swallowed painfully. I have loved you since the festival. She stared. Since the pierogi? Yes. That is absurd. I know. You waited until you got shot? Timing was never my strength. Claire bent over him, laughing and crying at once. She kissed his forehead, then his mouth, carefully. Stay alive and I'll answer you. His eyes narrowed. That is manipulation. I learned from dangerous people. Sirens filled the corridor. Matteo smiled. A real smile this time. Small. Rare. Completely hers. Richard Vale survived. For a man obsessed with image, survival proved unfortunate. The federal indictment was photographed from every angle. Vague theft, labor coercion, fraud, money laundering, witness intimidation, obstruction, conspiracy. The Bellamont board removed 6 executives within 48 hours. More than 400 workers entered a restitution agreement. 3 criminal investigations expanded beyond Chicago. The Moretti network fractured almost immediately after Carlo's death. Matteo spent 6 days in a private hospital. Claire spent 5 of them pretending she was not sleeping in the chair beside his bed. On the 6th morning, he opened his eyes and found her grading customer service assignments. You stayed. She did not look up. You were shot. That did not answer the question. Claire put down the papers. You're very demanding for someone wearing a hospital gown. Matteo glanced down. I hate this thing. I know. You refused to answer me. She smiled. I said stay alive. I did. Barely. Claire. She stood. Walked toward him. His eyes followed her. For all his power, something almost uncertain lived in his face. It changed her. This man who frightened cities was waiting for her answer like it could destroy him. Claire sat carefully on the edge of the bed. I love you too. Matteo went completely still. She touched his hand. But his eyes closed. Of course, Claire laughed. But you do not own me. I know. You don't buy buildings every time you're nervous. No promises. Matteo, I will try. You don't place security on people without telling them. Negotiable. Not negotiable. He sighed. Fine. And if you disappear emotionally every time you're afraid, I'm leaving you alone with your terrifying penthouse and terrible personality. Matteo looked at her. You think my personality is terrible? It's developing. He drew her gently closer with his uninjured arm. What else? Claire's smile faded slightly. You don't become good for me. His gaze sharpened. I don't need a fantasy. She touched his face. I need the truth. Whatever it is. Matteo looked at her for a long time, then nodded. That I can give you. He kissed her. Slowly. No emergency. No gunfire. No interruption. For the first time, neither of them was running toward or away from danger. They simply stayed. 9 months later, the Bellamont reopened its renovated workforce training center. The irony delighted Claire. The new program occupied the same lobby ballroom where she had originally been scheduled to speak. This time, 600 people attended. Claire stood near the stage watching Second Start graduates circulate among hotel executives. Samir had been promoted to guest experience director. Lourdes ran training operations. Several former Bellamont employees sat on an independent workforce council with actual power over labor standards. Claire refused 3 executive titles before accepting one she invented herself, Director of Human Experience. Matteo claimed the title was vague. Claire told him that was rich coming from a man whose legitimate business card still said chairman. The lobby glittered around them. A young employee approached Claire nervously. Miss Bennett? Yes? Mr. DeLuca is outside. Claire glanced toward the entrance. Why? He says he's not sure he's physically appropriate for the lobby. Claire closed her eyes. Samir began laughing. Half the staff had heard the story. Claire walked toward the revolving doors. Matteo stood beneath the hotel awning wearing a black suit. No overcoat despite the cold. 2 discreet security men waited near the curb. Claire stopped before him. You're impossible. So I've been told. You own 22% of this hotel now. 24. Why are you outside? He looked through the glass at the crowd, waiting for someone qualified to escort me in. Claire shook her head. Matteo held out his hand. Not demanded. Offered. She looked at it. 9 months earlier, people had watched her walk out of these doors because someone powerful decided she did not fit the picture. Today, the same lobby was full of workers whose voices had rewritten the institution. The hotel had changed. Matteo had changed. So had she. Not by becoming smaller. Not by becoming harder. By finally understanding that kindness had never been the opposite of power. Sometimes it was the purest form of it. Claire placed her hand in Matteo's. They entered together. A murmur moved through the lobby. Matteo ignored it. His thumb brushed over her knuckles. Claire looked at him. What? He asked. Everybody is staring. They usually do. At you. No. He glanced around the room, then back at her. At us. Claire smiled. Near the old registration desk, a little girl was struggling to pull an oversized suitcase while her exhausted mother searched through a purse. Claire released Matteo's hand. He already knew. Go, he said. She walked toward the family. Need some help? The mother looked up with relief. Oh, thank God. Claire took one side of the suitcase. The little girl took the other. Together they dragged it toward the elevator. Matteo remained near the entrance, watching, exactly as he had the first day. Except now Claire looked back. Their eyes met across the Bellamont lobby. Matteo smiled. No secrecy. No denial. No distance. Behind Claire, 3 newly arrived guests noticed what she was doing and followed her toward the elevator to ask for help. Then another. Then 2 more. Matteo watched the small procession form around her. 9 months earlier, he had wondered why frightened strangers naturally gathered around a woman a luxury hotel considered unsuitable for its lobby. Now he knew. Power could make people obey. Money could make people stay. Fear could make people silent. But Claire possessed something none of those things could buy. People followed her because, in her presence, they did not feel small. Matteo DeLuca had ruled half his life by making men fear what would happen if they walked away. The woman he loved had taught him there was another kind of loyalty. One people chose. Claire reached the elevator and glanced back again. Matteo crossed the lobby toward her, and this time when the entire room followed her with their eyes. Nobody asked whether Claire Bennett belonged there. They already knew. She had become the reason the place deserved to exist.